Well, welcome to today's Awesome Marriage Podcast. We're going to talk about keeping your marriage first and your marriage fun. My guest is Arlene Pellicane. She's a marriage and family speaker. She's the host of the Happy Home Podcast. She's an author of many books, including Making Marriage Easier, which we'll talk about today. She's also the spokesperson for National Marriage Week, which I was honored to be a part of this last November. And the National Marriage Week includes some incredible marriage strengthening resources. And then we'll tell you about those too. I'm delighted to have Arlene joining us today. This is a great podcast. It's a lot of fun. Let's go to the studio right now. Arlene, welcome to the Awesome Marriage Podcast. It is so good to see you. We've got to work together on National Marriage Week and some other things, and it's so good to have you on the podcast today.
It's an honor for me, Dr. Kim. Thank you.
Oh, it'll be a lot of fun. So tell people don't know, tell about who you are and your family. Of course, that's always important.
Yeah, my name is Arlene Pellicane. We live in San Diego. I am an only child, so we live near to my parents. And we have 3 children, and it goes so fast. We are boy, girl, girl. So we've got 2 in college now and 1 in high school. And I have really enjoyed being married for 26 years, and I love being a mom. So as I talk to people, I realize these are sometimes the pain points in people's lives, right? Their marriage and their parenting. And
Sure.
it's something I just enjoy doing to encourage people to say, hey, we can do this. Let's get better at this marriage and parenting thing. And we can with God's help.
Absolutely. And yes, there's struggles and everything, but just looking back, we tried to invest in every season with our
Yeah.
kids and roll with that because, like you said, it goes fast. I mean, you got
It
2 in
does.
college, 1 in high school. So we have our second grandson graduating from high school this year. And so, yeah,
Wow.
I mean, even grandkids, they grow almost faster. I don't
Right.
know.
It's like, how did that happen?
Like, I can't believe they're that he's that big at this point. But
Yes.
it is, and it's fun to, I don't know, kids are a lot of fun and just enjoy them. And one of the things that we have done successfully, our son and daughter, Nancy and I both say are very, very close friends to us in addition to
Yeah.
be our kids. And that was one of our goals growing up, that we wanted them to want to be around us when they grew up, and we wanted them to feel comfortable with their kids being around us. And
Yeah.
so that all worked out. So it's good. Very,
Yes.
very good.
There's
Well,
something recently I had read that Jordan Peterson wrote that he
uh-huh.
said, don't let your kids do anything that makes you not like them. And,
Ah,
and it was interesting to me. I thought, yeah, as your kids are growing up, if you let them get away with all this stuff that makes you mad at them, right? Disobedience, throwing a fit,
yeah,
whatever it is, then they really do grow up. And it's like, you are not pleasant to be around. But if
right.
as children, you're thinking, as I'm training you, let me help you to act in a way where I will like you, because that means you're acting in a way that other people will want to be with you. And it really sets it up for the adult relationships like you're talking about when your kids are adults, that it's like, oh, I love being with
Absolutely.
them. And it really starts when they're 3 and they're throwing the fit and you
Yes.
say, wait a minute, I need you to act in a way that I like you.
No, that's such wisdom from Jordan. I mean, that's exactly right. And because you are, I mean, our role is to train them up in the way they should go.
Mhm.
And you're not being mean by making them be respectful and
Yes.
value the things that they need to value. So
Yeah.
that's a great word for sure. So let's jump into marriage, since you're a marriage expert for us. What are the statistics saying about the state of marriage today and where it is today, but not only then how it's impacting the younger generation?
Yeah. So, there's always good news and bad news, right? And it's just depending
Yes.
on where you look like. So the good news is, wow, the divorce rate is down. So that's good. 'Cause you always think like, oh, the divorce rate is so looming and always growing, and it's down. But it kind of correlates because the marriage rate is also down, so you have less divorces, but you also have
Yeah.
less marriages. And so, per 1,000 people right now, 2.4 of them are getting divorced versus it used to be 4 in the year 2000. And then per 1,006 people are getting married, and it used to be 8. So we have, less marriages, less divorces. But I think something that is very telling is that if you look at the past, right? If you look at the 1960s, 88% of men age 25 to 35 were married. So the average young man was married. 9 out of 10 of them in the 60s
Oh,
were
yeah.
married. Today, that number is 30%. So 3 out of 10 of those 25 to 35s will be married. So you see that, okay, men are engaging much later and much less. And so what is that doing? Like, what's happening to marriage if less people get married and less people have children? That has serious
Mhm.
implications for the society. And, you can look that up in all sorts of countries, not just the United States. And,
Sure.
and we also have the graying of divorce, that people are getting divorced later, that it kind of used to be that, man, if you
Yes.
make it past the child raising things, man, you're golden. You're going to make it. In 1990, 8.7 of those of marriages over 50 might be divorced. So 8.7 people. But today, that's jumped to 36% of divorces are now
Wow.
people 50 and over. And so you also see the graying of divorce. And so it just makes you wonder, if we are staying together because we are for the kids and we are so child centric and everything is about Junior and everything's about the kids, and then they leave the house, and then you look at each other for a few years and say, man, we have nothing here. And then you see this divorce. And so
Yeah.
I think we're having problems on both ends. We have problems on the front end of the marketing of marriage. Like, do young people want to get married? And then we're having some problems on the back end, that as people get older, they're growing apart from their spouse instead of making a more secure commitment. I just talked to someone and their parents were celebrating 70 years. 70 years is amazing. And they're saying they're just as in love as ever. But they were talking about that mindset then was, you marry and you stay committed for life. It was just not a question. This is how we do this. And I think we need that renewal of that to have that awesome marriage once again.
Yeah, and it's not existing for 70 years. It's really making this
Yes.
something that you cherish and you
Yeah.
enjoy. And now I worked with, actually in the last couple of years, probably at least two families where the adult children were dealing with their parents getting a divorce, and totally shocked, totally blown out of the water,
Yeah.
because it wasn't like the parents fought all the time. I think what you're saying is that it's just the parents raised the kids, and then they realized after a couple of years, we didn't do the things to connect us, and we're not doing it
Mhm.
now, and so we leave, and so we
Yeah.
separate, and it's sad to see that, because you fought through a lot to get to where you are, and
Yeah.
it's never too late to turn that around. Of course, I'm biased. I'm a counselor, and I
That's
think,
right.
and I also believe God can heal anything, but no,
Yeah.
I think that as I begin to see those stats that you're talking about, the graying, it was concerning. It really
Mhm.
was concerning, because I that is a new stat.
Yeah.
I remember my parents' generation, that just didn't happen, and
Mhm.
so I think it's something we have to deal with. And I think, how kind of impact then does that have on, say, grandchildren
Yeah.
of those people that, they used to come to Pop and Mom's house,
Right.
and now Pop and Mom, we got to go to two houses.
And
And,
you can
and
attest that being a grandparent is super fun. Like, that is to be enjoyed. And so you want to enjoy that and not it
yes,
to be a painful part, when the grandkids come. And if you're divorced, then you have this painful part associated with it that doesn't need to
absolutely.
be there.
There's a lot of ripple effect to that.
Yeah.
So couples that are listening, watching us
Mhm.
today, that are married, they hear these and they go, "Ooh, that's kind of scary." What can they do?
And sometimes that, ooh, this is kind of scary. That's kind of a good thing, because
Mm,
there is the power of bad that, you think of Deuteronomy, and when they're talking about, these are the blessings you get if you follow God's commandments, but these are the curses that will happen to you if you don't follow God's commandments. The curses always are much more lengthy than the blessings. The blessings might be 10 verses and the curses are like 30 verses or more. So there is something in us where we do care about that negativity bias of, we want to avoid something. So I think if just listening to this conversation has made you think, wait, I want to avoid that. I want to avoid the gray divorce. I want to avoid
mhm.
drifting apart. I want to avoid the complication of being now splitting our whole family in two. That's a very positive thing, I believe. I know it sounds weird, but it can make us
No.
think, wait a minute, I've got to wake up. I don't want to drift into that. A lot of times we'll think, oh, it'll be easier if, this is what the world tells you. It'll be easier if you just split up, then you can do your own thing. But you don't see that, like, oh my goodness, now I've just exchanged one set of problems for another set of problems that is even perhaps more daunting than the problems I just left of being on my own and supporting myself and paying alimony or whatever it is that you are doing. So I think the warning is good, that this is somewhere we don't want to be. So then positively, what are the steps we can take to ensure that that won't happen. And I think there's a humility in it, Dr. Kim. It's not like that will never happen to me. It's more of a, that could happen to me. We could drift apart. So what are ways we can do? And that's what making marriage easier is all about, is like, what are the ways we can kind of sew our lives back together, like knit them back together so that there's, like, it's almost impossible to separate because you're so interwoven.
Right.
And you do that a little by little every day.
Yeah, it's not just a one-time thing.
Yeah.
I think just being aware, like you said, of our vulnerability, just like when I
Mhm.
talk to people about affairs and pornography, if
Yeah.
you say you're not vulnerable, you're probably setting yourself up for failure. And I
Yeah.
think we all have to plan, like, because we have this sin nature in
Mhm.
us and that we yield to at times. And so in a marriage situation, continuing to work on it, when Nancy and I did our last book on love, intimacy, and sex in the second half, that was a lot of what we wanted people to do, is to look at what you can put into place now so that
Mhm.
second half of your marriage, your life together, can be something that's just a blessing and that you enjoy and
Yes.
that you look forward to. Instead, yeah, I think it's always a little sad when the last child leaves. I remember that.
Yeah.
But we recovered really quick because our kids were going out and doing things they wanted to do.
Yes.
They had come to that point in life too. And then all of a sudden we had this freedom that we hadn't had in 21 years since we started
Right.
having kids, you know.
Right.
But I think if you don't prepare for it, it makes it harder. And even if you're listening today and you haven't prepared, it's never too late to
Yeah.
say, wait a minute, we don't want to, because the greener grass isn't green when you get over there. It's just not. I just have never had somebody that said, we divorced and this happened, and I'm so glad I did, because of the ripple effect and the problems that come with that, for
Yeah.
sure. So you guys are married 26 years?
26 years.
Congratulations.
Thank
What
you.
are the 4 decisions that help you guys remain as happily married as you are? I mean, one thing I've always remembered about you is your smile. I mean, I don't know
Mhm.
if you ever take that off, but I always see you with a smile, and that means there's got to be a lot of good things going on in your life
Yeah.
for that. So, what have you guys done?
Yes, looking back, we thought, okay, how have we done these 26 years? We're not superhuman. We're not super spiritual. Like, anyone can do this. And it came down to these 4 decisions. The first decision is to play by the rules, play
Mm,
by God's rules. Like, what does God's word say? And let us obey that as much as we can. Of course, we're sinful and we're going to go back and repent.
sure.
But what are God's rules? Just like if you're playing a game, if the goal kept moving, or if
Yeah.
the referee made the wrong, different calls every time, you'd be very confused. So in your marriage, really establish like this is what's normal for us,
Mm,
and we will abide by these rules. So that really helps just pre-decide what you will and won't do in your marriage. The second one is to give thanks every day. The idea that, hey, when you got
mm,
together, you were like, thank you, God, I finally found this person. I mean, you were really grateful, and you just oozed with this gratitude. But year after year after year, instead of gratitude, what can happen? Grumbling. Oh, he doesn't do this. She doesn't do this.
yes.
What's happening? Their spouse is so much better than my spouse. We never do stuff like that. And you get this grumbling attitude. So how can we turn this around and bring that Thanksgiving back into the marriage? Because really, it's thanks to God, because we're grumbling to him, right? About like
Yeah.
all these things. So how can we then say, well, you know what, Lord, in the middle of it all, I thank you. I thank you for my marriage. I thank you for my spouse. The third decision is to
So good.
serve your spouse. And that is not to live with this attitude like, well, what are you going to do for me? Because, man, you go day after day after that, you see like, well, you are disappointing me on every turn, because what are you going to do for me? But instead, what can I do for you? Is there something I can do to help you today, dear? And when you have that attitude, the servant heart, it changes, right? The whole way that the home feels. This is not permission for
Mm,
one person to, abuse the other. That's not what I'm talking about when I'm saying serve your spouse. No, serve your spouse is this attitude of, I am interested in like protecting you and loving
mhm,
you and helping you. How can you serve your spouse? And then the last decision number 4, is to take fun seriously. That fun isn't just this extra thing that you do one week out of the whole year for vacation, or when you're rich, or when the kids are out of the house, but that fun was what brought you together. You dated your spouse, you spent time with them because you thought they were fun. You didn't just sit there like,
yeah.
well, you're a very boring person like that.
He
That
wasn't
hardly
very
ever happened.
no,
You were having so
no.
much fun together. So
Yeah.
how can you rekindle that? How can you do fun things together? And a great question just to ask your spouse is, hey, when was the last time we had fun together? When was the last time we had a good laugh together? And if you're really like, wow, we don't really do that, then that's why you got to take fun seriously, or else it's all work and it's all business. And that's when it becomes really easy to become disenchanted. But if you're having fun on a regular basis and smiling and laughing together, it makes everything else easier in the relationship.
Absolutely. Nancy and I were just talking about that earlier today because I've had so many couples over the last years, not every couple, but so
Yeah.
many of them. I always ask them, what do you do for fun?
Yeah.
And half of them, I get a blank stare.
Yeah.
And so I go back, so because I know they had to have fun before they got married or they wouldn't.
Right.
So I said, what'd you do before? Oh,
Yeah.
I could tell all these things. And so I'll try to help them see, okay, well, what can you do some of those things again?
Yeah.
And help them talking about things they can do to have fun. And if it's just, sometimes Nancy and I'll just lay in bed and look at funny videos and just
Right.
die laughing, but it's fun,
Right.
and you're
Yes.
enjoying something together. There's so many ways to have fun. And I think you're right. When you take that out of a marriage, boy, you take a lot out
Yeah.
because that's one of the joys of being able to. There's nothing better than laughing with your spouse. I mean, it's just it connects us in a way, and to have your own little jokes that only you're the only two that know about. I mean,
Right.
just having fun and appreciating each other. I love all of those. I think it's so much research has been done lately on gratitude and how that changes us, and being thankful for your spouse and thanking God for your spouse every day. I can attest to that because I do that. It makes a difference. It makes a difference how you look at your spouse. It makes a difference how you respond to them and interact with them. Because if you really continue to look at your spouse as this gift that God gave you, I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean,
It's
that's just,
it, it's like putting glasses on. Like if you put glasses on, like I'm going to
yeah,
look for things that make me thankful. All of a sudden you'll be like, oh, you went to work. You could be a slob and just lay at home all day. I'm thankful for that. Oh, you
yeah,
made dinner.
yes,
Gee,
yes,
thanks. But if you put the glasses on that are critical, then you're thinking, why didn't you have a better job? Why didn't you make a better meal? And everything is
right.
different, even though it's all the same. I remember one week leading up to Thanksgiving, James had written
So
down,
good.
like on Monday, he wrote down something he was grateful for me. Like, oh, I'm so glad you take Lucy to school and you're always so cheerful when you do it. Tuesday, when I come home, the dinner is made. Wednesday, whatever, you go to church and bring Lucy to youth group. I think that's great. And then he presented it to me at the end of the week saying, look, these are the things I noticed. And I was like,
Mhm.
wow, that's amazing. So it can be
So
so
cool.
simple. It's
Yeah.
just taking a piece of paper, writing down something. For it could be something you give to your spouse. It could be just something, your own prayer journal, that you're trying to work that gratitude muscle, but it's not hard. And it's that little shift that will really help you.
I want to talk a little bit about serving your spouse because I think that's so important. Obviously, Jesus was the great model of serving others and people that he loved. But so much of the time, what I see is that, well, I would serve her, but she needs to serve me first. But that's not really what God wants us to do, is it?
Yeah, it is funny, right? It's like, I will do it as much as you do it to me.
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
but the idea of the servant is like, I don't care what you do, I'm still going to serve you, right? So
Right.
that is, it's true. We live in a society that's very me oriented. So
Yep.
it's like, if it's not helping me, why am I doing it?
Hmm.
And yet, we all know that when we serve someone else, whether it's our spouse or anybody else, we feel better about ourselves. It's like God wired us that
Absolutely.
way, that you feel like, wow, when you give, you receive so much. So it really is, like you're saying, to rethink that and to realize, wait a minute, in the kingdom of God, service is what is really great. And even if your spouse doesn't notice, your kids don't notice, other people don't notice, God notices. God
Yes.
knows these things. When you're
Absolutely.
wiping up that dish and you feel like nobody sees me, when you're changing the oil in the car and nobody said thank you, like God saw what you did. And those works mean something to him. So yeah, it's a good reminder, like, wait a minute, let me see who can outserve the other, right? Like who can do more.
Yes. Yeah. That's fun when a couple really gets that and I've had couples and they'll finally get it and they'll come back in for a checkup or something and they just laugh at how much fun they're having
Yeah.
outdoing each other,
Yes.
and it kind of gets contagious. But to me, even if Well, I don't know. Nancy does such a good job of serving me, but I know that my role is to serve her no matter what she does or doesn't do, and that
Yeah.
my obedience is to God. And I want to be able to go to bed each night saying, God, I wasn't perfect, but with your help, I think I did a pretty good job today of
Yeah.
serving her and asking. The other thing I do, and I encourage people to do, is ask God to show you ways that you can serve your spouse, because there's ways that maybe, and I think God just, he loves to prompt us. I think when we
Mhm.
open that door for him, he's going to bring things to your mind that you probably might not have thought of otherwise.
Mhm. Yeah, and it doesn't sometimes we think like, "Oh, what does this look like to serve your spouse?" For my husband and I, he loves like athletic pursuits and I don't, right? He loves camping and the outdoors and I like hotels and bathrooms,
Yes.
you know. So sometimes that service looks like, okay, if you like something, I'll try it. So even whether it's skiing or whatever, like I'm not good at it, right? But he is thankful that I'll try. So sometimes in the marriage, the service is,
Yeah.
okay, if you like something, I'll try it. And even if I'm not good at it, let the other person appreciate that you're trying. So whoever is good at the thing or likes it, give your spouse kudos for trying it. Don't make them feel bad for not doing it well. Give them the kudos for
Right.
trying. And then for those of us that we're not so good at whatever it is, like try it, because so many of us just kind of shut down and we say, well, that's not our thing. We don't do it. Before we were married, let's say we went to all these sports games. And so the husband thinks, oh, my wife loves sports games, but the wife just wanted to be with you. So after being married a while, they're like, I don't even like football. I don't even go to these games. So one way to serve your spouse is, hey, I'll still show up to the game happily, not because I like the game, but because I like you.
Yeah.
And really that is there are very practical ways to serve your spouse, but many times we're so interested in like, well, I don't like that. That's not something I do. So a service, it could be, you know what, if you like it, I will try it.
Yeah. And I think there's joy. Nancy's taught me this because I know there's things that over our marriage that she has done to serve me. And she told me one time, she said, no, I really don't like that, going to those games or doing this.
Mhm,
And she
mhm.
said, but I love watching you enjoy it. And I thought,
Yes.
wow, that's really cool.
Yes. Isn't that
Yeah, I remember
beautiful?
early on in our marriage before we had kids, I loved ice hockey and she loved the ballet. So we made it as one season. We'd go to a hockey game and would go to the ballet. And so we kind of
That's
balanced that
awesome.
out. But
We
I've
got to
also,
find ballet people who do ballet and then hit a puck at the
yeah,
same time.
exactly. But we used to go to football games in the like the University of Oklahoma, and Norman's a neat college town, and so I know she learned to love football, but early on
Yeah,
she didn't. But there's some neat shops she liked in Norman,
mhm.
so we'd go either before or after the game, depending on what time the game
That's
was, and
sweet.
we'd go shop
Yeah,
some. And so it was kind of a compromise. It was kind of, or maybe we'd
yeah,
go eat before or after the game at somewhere that she wanted to eat. And so I think if you can look at it like that, you can make it a win-win for
I love
both of
that.
you, just being a little
Yeah.
creative in what you do. For
Yes.
sure. Yeah, that's cool. So what are some of the ways that you guys keep fun in your marriage?
Yeah. With my husband is so out of the box, so I have to credit him for giving the activities that bring fun, and will credit me for just laughing and just thinking things. I'm very easily amused, so it kind of works for both of us. But for instance, when we enrolled our kids in martial arts, so many of you
Yeah.
listening, you put your kids in activities, right? And what usually happens is you put your kid in the activity and you watch them, right? You watch their soccer, you watch their ballet, you watch their martial arts, whatever it is, you watch them. Well, my husband was having none of that. So he came back and he said, if we enroll the 3 kids in martial arts, they'll let us join the class for free. So he was like, pay 3 and get 2 free. So Dr. Kim, we would be in the little kids class with all these little tiny kids,
Oh my
and my
gosh.
husband James and I with the blue dragon t-shirts with the dragons on them, standing in the back, twice as big as all the other kids. And we were learning all the moves with the kids. And it was the most
Oh, that's so good.
hysterical 3-4 years of doing that together as a family. It was so funny. And my husband, when he put my head in a triangle, we're doing jujitsu, I was like, you've got to be kidding. I cannot do this. When we do put on the sparring gear and my husband and I would be facing off, you got
Yeah.
that big circle on your chest. And I would say to him, don't touch
Yeah.
me. And he's like, the whole point is to hit you. So we've had so many funny memories doing that.
I
So
bet.
I think the fun comes in how can I participate? instead of just watching, what are things we can do together as a family, whether it's biking, going to a lake, even
Yeah.
going to the same movie together that you all love together, whatever, like what can we do all together? And then when the kids are grown and gone, you're also asking, what are those same activities that my husband, my spouse, and I can keep doing together? Our new
Right.
thing is ballroom dancing. So we were taking classes and doing the
Wow.
ballroom dancing. And believe me, the first time we did it, there's all these older couples, 60, 70, 80 years old. They're
Yeah.
dancing so beautifully, right? And we look ridiculous. So they're all coming up to us and trying to help us. So again, whenever you do something fun, sometimes it's out of the comfort zone, right? And you think like, I will never do this again because usually when you start something, you're not great at it. A
No.
new hobby, whatever it is, you're like, it's kind of hard at first. But then once you start doing it, if you have a sense of humor about it, you end up either making some funny memories and leaving it behind, or really getting to like it and then enjoying it for fun. So just keep
Yeah.
trying. In the book, Making Marriage Easier, I have a very long list of activities. So you and your spouse can look through it, kind of circle the ones that you think you might try, and then try them together until you find something that brings you both a moderate amount of joy. One of you might like it more than the other, but you both can do it.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up the book because certainly we want a lot of wisdom in that book, and it has been out since February. And so I encourage you to look at that, Making Marriage Easier. So I have a question, though, with the martial arts. So what did your
Yeah.
kids think when the other kids would go, who are those big people back
Right.
there?
That's such a great question. And they were really little. They were like 3, 6,
Oh, wow.
8. So they were really little. So it's interesting because for them, that was very normal for us to be
Yeah.
there. Right.
Yeah.
And then we're friends with all the other kids too. So it was actually a very sweet experience.
That's
So
great.
I don't think they ever questioned, like, why are my parents here, but other, like they just thought that was normal for us. And that did become kind of the normal vibe of our family of, oh yeah, we're Pelicanes. We do it kind of different. Like my mom and dad are going to play with us kind of thing. So I think through the years, they liked it and they found it very entertaining. And I think I will even go as
That's
far as to
great.
say we would get some admiring looks from the other parents, like, wow, like we would never want to do that, what you guys are doing, but props to you. So it was a positive experience. And it also was an experience like, you know what, it's okay. You don't have to do it like everyone else. And it kind of gave them, they've all gone to public school. It gave them just this feel of like, it's okay to be different. And,
Yes.
and I think that was positive for everybody, actually.
Oh, I think it would be too. I think it's great. I remember one year Nancy and some of her friends, moms whose daughters were doing ballet. I think the girls were probably 4 or 5, and the moms I guess for that
Yeah.
semester took it with them, and the
How
moms were
fun.
actually in the recital at the end, and
Oh
so
my goodness, that's amazing.
so yeah, I'd see people out in the lobby before, and they said, "Well, is your daughter in this?" I said, "Yeah, so's my wife."
Right.
So there's
That's
10
horrible.
women and moms and everybody else with the kids, and so
Isn't that
it
great?
was fun though. But it was, I think, yeah, I think our kids loved that. It was really
Yeah.
cool. It's
Yeah, and
great
the
that y'all did that.
strangeness of it, right? That it's different. That's what makes it fun. It's like, wait, what? Your mom is in
Absolutely.
the ballet with you? That's really
Come
fun.
on. Yeah. Well, Nancy had been growing up, always wanting to do ballet, never had the
Yeah.
chance growing up. And
Yeah.
so this was kind of a dream come true for
Oh, it's
her, and to be doing it
adorable.
the same time our daughter was kind of cool.
That's so cute.
Yeah, they were matching tutus or something
That's
like
amazing.
that. Yeah. So I want to go back to something, the Power Hour,
Yep.
that is talk about what it is and how it affects a marriage.
Yeah, you all listening have the ability to have a power hour. And what that is eating food with your spouse every single day. So
Mm,
this was one of our rules, like, hey, we're going to eat together. So this isn't the kind of thing where it's like, oh, we're out of town. What do we do? Yeah, okay, you don't eat together. Or someone has a really late meeting. It's okay. Go ahead and eat before they come home. That's fine. But
sure.
this is just saying the norm is that we're going to eat together. So if you weren't eating together, you'd feel like, well, this is strange. I'm at dinner, but my spouse
Mhm.
isn't here. This is strange. So that should feel strange. And maybe it's not dinner because your schedule doesn't allow that. So you're having coffee in the morning together or breakfast together or
Sure.
etc. But the idea is, you have to eat every single day. Like that's something that's going to happen. So when you combine that with time with your spouse and also with your kids, if you have kids in the home, then that power hour is going to connect you, and you think like over 26 years of marriage, we have over 10,000 hours eating together,
Yeah.
logged in the books. And so guess what? All that time connecting, it brings you together. Not a day goes by where you don't know what were the highlights of someone's day, what really upset them that day, what was something funny that happened. Like every single day, you are caught up. And so when you don't have that, you don't have the family meal, then the days go on, right? You go to work, you go to school, you get on your
Yeah.
computer, you finish your homework, you get your things, you go to sleep, and you have no idea like what is happening in the hearts and lives of the people in this house. So a couple days like that go by and you're drifting, drifting, drifting. So the power hour helps you connect every single day. It's not a business meeting. It's not a place to chew each other out. It's a place to have fun, to have warm conversation, to be curious. So, you can imagine that this used to be a staple of life. Everyone
Yeah.
ate together. That was just so normal.
Yeah.
Today, you take any average couple or family and you ask, how many dinners do you guys eat together? Be like, one, two,
Yeah.
three, right? Because everybody's running to this and running from this and going to that.
Right.
And no
Right.
wonder we are not feeling as connected. No wonder we are more distanced from each other. So the power hour, just bringing us back to the dinner table, is really a simple and profound way to get closer to the people in your house again.
I love that because I think when our kids were growing up and they were busy, but dinner together as a
Mhm.
family was we just always did it. I mean, I think
Yeah,
we probably hit s 6 out of 7 every week, sometimes 7
right.
out of 7, and then
Yeah,
Sunday night, it was just family. It was,
yeah,
the 4 of us, and so I think that's so good, and I think as people listening and watching, you can find time to do that. I've got
hmm,
couples you mentioned something that kinda triggered for me is that they get up a little bit earlier, and they have coffee together and maybe have toast, and they spend that time together before the kids get up and before the day starts, and so I think just looking for those and knowing how valuable that can be of just having that time to connect. One thing that I think that I've seen in couples that kind of start out and they go, "What are we going to talk about?" Well, so I give them an ideas, but I think what I see over time, you have that and you start being aware of things that happen during your day that you want to share with your spouse
yeah.
because you know you're going to have that time, things that you might not have even talked to your spouse about before. So I think it just kind of can evolve, continue to evolve in something that's really, really special as it has
Yeah.
for you guys.
Yes, very much so. To keep curious about your spouse and think of those other questions to ask and know that, hey, I'm going to see my spouse. I'm going to see them at
Yes,
dinner or whatever meal it is. And that's a good thing.
absolutely. Okay, let's get into an area that can be a little, well, let's just jump into it.
Yeah.
You talk about prioritizing your spouse over your children. How does keeping fun in your marriage help allow you to do that easily?
Yeah. Yeah, so we had kind of touched on you don't want it to be feel like all business. You want that warm connection with your spouse. And so having fun with your
Yes.
spouse helps. Like a lot of us, we have fun with our kids, right? It's easy for us to have fun with the kids. Maybe we're reliving our soccer days or we're just so excited to see them in the school play or my daughters and I we like to go to concerts together. So, so you're having all these
Yeah.
fun memories with your kids, which is awesome and that's good and you should be having them, but we also need to be making those fun memories with our spouse, whether that's all of us with the kids or just with our spouse. Both of those things need to happen. And so it is a good question. Like, okay, I would go on a little vacation, let's say with my kids to say, oh, let's say they have a sports event. And so I'd easily go with them out of town and
Sure.
see them on their sports event. Well, would I so readily say if my husband said, hey, let's do a getaway over the weekend? But then you think, oh, that means we have to get a babysitter or they got to go to mom and dad's and they'll miss us or that. And then you're more reticent, right? You're more like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So then it's a bit of we have to ask ourselves, wait a minute, why am I so eager to do the thing with my kids? But then if it's to do it with my spouse, I've
Yes.
got all this excuses of like, well, that wouldn't work. We can't do that. So a lot of it is realizing, okay, our 2-year-old, our baby, our 5-year-old, whatever, they're not going to remember that they had to go to Aunt Bertha's for the weekend,
No.
so my husband and I could get away alone. So one wonderful thing to do is really make a decision. I am going to nurture the marriage during the child raising years. We will go out for little getaways, whether it's a 24-hour getaway, whether it's a 2-day vacation, as long as your kids obviously are with someone trusted. Those are positive things you want to do that. And then like on a
Absolutely.
regular day-to-day weekly basis, I think with my daughters, they play tennis. So if I had to sit in the car and wait for them an extra hour, let's say, I'd be like, oh, that's fine. I'll read a book, extra hour, no big deal. But if my husband told me to pick him up, but then told me, hey, something came up, can you wait for an hour? I'd be like, are you kidding me? Don't you know Uber, Lyft? Like, why am I
Oh,
sitting in the car here?
yeah.
So just that same courtesy that we extend to our children. And believe me, I am so guilty of this. I'm not talking from a high perch,
Yeah.
it's just, can we do the same thing? Will we go the extra distance also for our spouse? Can
Yeah.
we look at our 8-year-old, our 12-year-old and think to ourselves, you know what, someday this person's going to be my extended family. Someday this kid's going to grow up, have a family of their own. And it's really my spouse that is going to matter. That's going to be the most
Yeah.
more important person in my life. So why is my spouse not the most important person right now? Because
Absolutely.
the kids are. So to try to do that. And believe me, when you prioritize that marriage, it doesn't take away from your kids, right? It blesses your kids. There's nothing that's going to comfort them than knowing like, oh, my mom and dad really love each other. They really like each other. That just lets them go out into life and explore and be confident in everything because they know everything's okay at home.
Absolutely. And kids, yeah, our kids need to see that. And I had a couple one time, and so I was trying to get them to do things like that. Nancy and I, for, there's a couple of years, we would, when the kids were still home, we'd find a bed and breakfast within 100 miles of where we lived.
Yes.
And we tried all different bed and breakfasts and stuff like that. So I was trying to get them to do stuff. And they were just, no, we can't leave the kids. And I said, so you're not
Yes.
going to do something good for your marriage, and you're just going to sit home and fight in front of your kids like you've done the last 5 weekends,
Oh, no.
And finally, I think they said, "Oh, that probably isn't good, is it?" And I said, "No,
Right.
no.
Right.
If you go and enjoy each other and bring the
Mhm.
fun back in your marriage, it's going to carry over the next
Yeah.
week. So I
Yeah.
love that. But let's talk about this whole idea. Some people can't get on board with putting the spouse before children, or maybe they think about it and we can, but they just don't follow through with it. So, how would a couple know if they're letting the kids take that place that their spouse really needs to be taking?
Yeah. You think if something comes up, and there's a conflict, are you siding immediately with the kids or are you siding with your spouse, whether it is, in open, like you're all talking about it, or even just in your heart. So I think there's something in our hearts that has to be like, let me try to understand my spouse first and then try to understand my kids. Now
Mm,
that is very unnatural, especially for us as moms. If we have
sure.
a kid, the 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 7-year-old, I mean, we are all about that. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like, what do you need, child? I will get it for you.
Yes.
And if your spouse disagrees, I will steamroller right over you
Yeah.
because I
Get
am
out of
mama bear and we are going to do what these kids want to do. So
get
it
out of my way.
is, it is something, you're looking at scripture of husbands love, wives submit, wives yield, support your husband's leadership, and children obey. And so you're constantly going back to that. Like, am I as a parent just trying to, is it backward? Is it parent obeyed the child? Then we know, okay, so this something's wrong. If I'm letting my child, a lot of times in the marriage, the child is dictating something. The
Yeah.
mom is like, okay, child, sure we will. And the dad's like, who's the boss here? And then we as the wives, many times we defend the kids
Yep.
instead of going with our
Yes.
husband. And so for us to be, and that's, sometimes it's all the opposite. Sometimes it's the husband that the daughter's got him wrapped around her little chubby finger. And the
Yeah.
mom is just like, hello, do you not see what she is doing to
Yes.
rule the roost? So many times it is a question of leadership and of, the parent needs to lead the child. The husband is the leader of the couple, and all of those things. I remember when my husband James wanted the kids to ride their bikes to elementary school. So he was teaching Ethan, age 5, to kindergarten, to ride his bike because it involved some hills in our neighborhood.
Sure.
And so he would be out there and he'd be teaching him because he said, I got to get him ready for the first day of school. Well, I'm out there too. And so Ethan does his thing, but then he like wants to stop. He kind of did enough and he's just like, I'm done. I want to stop. And I'm thinking, yeah, let the kid stop. Like, he did a lot already. Let him stop. But James is like, no, no, no. You get back on that bike and you do that hill one more time. And as a mom, I'm wanting to say something like, oh, give the kid a break. He's already done it so many times, right?
Yep.
So I want to say something. But I bite my tongue, let him do his thing. And, Ethan's upset, I have to do it again. I don't want to do it again. I don't want to do it again. But no, you get on your bike, you do it again. And he went up the hill and he came back down and he did it really well. And James praised him, good job. And for us moms, we have to realize, yeah, that toughening, that training, whether it's a bike or anything else, right? A lot of times it reveals, am I putting my child before my spouse, and
That's so
am
good.
I listening to what my spouse has to give? Because it's true that a lot of times the mom gives the softness and the dad gives the toughness, and both are really needed.
Absolutely. Yeah, and he's teaching him to ride a bike. He wasn't teaching him how to walk on glass, across the street or something. Or then you might
That
go.
was the next week. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and I think too, those conversations, you just don't want to have those kind of conversations in front of the child. Or even
Right.
like
Yeah.
with that afterwards, you could say, "Hey, I was about ready to jump in, but I didn't, and I'm so
Yes.
glad I didn't because I see what you were doing." And
Yeah,
encourage each
or
other with
even the
that.
opposite. Even the opposite. If I would have said in private, I think you're pushing him too hard. I mean, you're allowed to say that, but in private. And then, but you're
Yes.
right.
Oh yeah.
I could see that the result was good.
Yeah, which is really nice because it might not have been teaching kids to ride bikes and grandkids to ride bikes. And I love doing it, but it's hard but the joy comes when they finally get it.
That's
But
right.
those falling over and getting up and making sure they're okay and you're tough, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not bleeding that much, or something like
Right.
that. As guys.
Yes.
But there's that joy when we see our kids accomplish something and that
Yeah.
they see the value in persevering. And I think things
Yes.
like that we can teach them as parents go a long way,
Yeah.
for sure. So what are some other ways to keep your spouse first? Any other ways that you can think of?
Yeah. In your prayers, obviously, to be praying for your spouse, to think of them
Ah,
well, I think it's just a preferencing, that instead of us always preferring ourselves, that we would say, okay, I'm going to prefer my spouse in this moment, preferring our kids. Okay, how can I prefer my spouse in this moment? And I think it's forgiving quickly, that when your
mm,
spouse does something that kind of irritates you, that you will get to the point as soon as possible, that, okay, I can forgive this person. And then, like we talked about, decision number 2, give thanks. Like, how can I
yeah,
give thanks for my spouse today?
I love that. I think that whole deal of giving thanks it can get to where that just covers your whole marriage in a really positive
Yeah.
way.
Yes.
I love that. Let's talk a little about the book. So somebody listen today, they think, hey, she's got this book, Making Marriage Easier. What are they going to find when they pick it up?
It's gonna make you laugh, which I think is really something I'm happy about, and men like it too. So I am so thrilled when husbands come up to me and they say, "Oh, you put like my thoughts in this book and now we can talk about it." Or, "Oh, I'm in chapter 17." I'm
So
just like, "Oh,
good.
I can't believe you're doing it." Or,
Yeah.
I bought this for my adult sons. So that makes me really happy, because a lot of marriage books, right? The woman says to the man, "Please read this book with me." So my
Yes.
challenge is read the introduction, read chapter 1, and if you don't want to go on, that is absolutely fine for me. But the book is to be made easy. It's something that's
It-
funny, that is non-threatening, but that brings up some pretty important issues that then you and your spouse can talk about. So I really hope it'll be a blessing to your
Oh, so
marriage.
good. So good. And you also have the Happy Home podcast, which
Happy
people
Home
can tune
Podcast.
into. And if they want to find you other places, where would they find you?
Yeah, you can go to makingmarriageeasier.com, just
Okay.
the title of the book, makingmarriageeasier.com. You can find freebies, free date night ideas, and all sorts of things there. And of course, you can buy the book on Amazon or wherever you buy books.
That's great. So final question. You got 2 in college, 1 at home.
Yeah.
What are you enjoying most about your marriage today?
Yeah, I think it's the companionship. It's the
Mhm.
realization that, okay, it is going to be the two of us. And you know what? That's going to be okay.
Yeah.
That it's going to be fun. And honestly, just like anyone, you and your spouse, you get on each other's nerves. You're just like,
Absolutely.
you are just so annoying right now. So we all go through this. But all I have to do is play this little game in my mind. Like, what if I was alone? Right? I would just need to be alone for one day, maybe 2 days, where it'd be like, I want my spouse back with all the annoyances and everything. And I think if we can just remember that every day is a gift that we have together and to really enjoy them. So the thing I'm really loving right now is the companionship and the shared, having someone who shares all the same love for your kids and all is going through all the same gamut of emotions of them growing up, right? And being able to do that together.
That is such a great answer. So cool. This has been a ball. I love getting with you, and I love your
thank you, Dr. Kim.
insight on marriage, and I love a book that people can really enjoy and have fun with and do the things, the 4 things you talked about. And so thanks for spending time with us today. Look forward to connecting again soon with either through Marriage Week or all the other things that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kim. This has been such a joy, and thank you for championing marriages all along. Thank you.
You're so very welcome.